that was really great. I think we can call that a wrap.
Oh yeah?
Does anybody need help getting out of the box?
Kragan with 1,000 Faces is a multi-channel video installation that deals with cinema, television, storytelling, and roleplay. It's about how we use all these different sources, the media, history, fashion, our personal experiences, institutional education, to create for ourselves the concept of our identity.
Let's just hit it and see where it goes.
What would Freud say about this, huh? He would say the same.
I started to realize that I watch a lot of TV, and I wanted to figure out why that appealed to me so much. So I started to make work about things that amused me, like what if Clint Eastwood was in a film with, say, Humphrey Bogart and the cast of the TV medical drama House.
And look, I think it would look good if you sat here.
Okay.
And then, you know, as time went on, the work started to become more like my personality, and my personality started to become more like the work. I almost always write a script when I work with actors just to make sure that they say all of the things that I need them to say. But how closely we stick to that script really depends on things like the particular actors that I'm working with that day, the general feel that I want for the scene. My collaboration with Sarah Mooney, the actress who plays the Lauren Bacall character, is particularly important. I found it best when working with her to compose a very flexible script that gives her the basic framework for the scene and certain lines that need to be delivered verbatim, but give her the freedom to improvise once the cameras roll. I've worked with her over the past 3 years, so I've got a pretty good sense of her style, and that makes it really easy to write characters for her, but likewise, I feel like she has a really great sense of what I'm looking for in certain characters, so I rarely have to give her much direction.
So do you have the first part memorized?
It's inappropriate and vulgar and absolutely unacceptable to use your private life to sell anything commercially. Looking in a mirror isn't a study of real life.
As a kid, my sister and I used to make videos on the weekends when we visited our dad, and at times he got really involved in this too, which was a lot of fun. We would borrow my mom's camcorder, and then we'd come up with scripts and storyboards, and we'd drive all around town shooting all the scenes. Sometimes we'd make videos on our own too, and it was like this big secret. We didn't want anyone else to know what we were up to until it was finished. And we made all kinds of stop-motion animations, most of which were parodies of things we'd seen in movies or on TV. One was a claymation parody of A Christmas Carol called Scrooge in Space, and the climactic fight scene ended with Emily Cratchit getting stabbed through the heart by Tiny Tim's crutch. Halfway through filming, we got really lazy and didn't go all the way through with the claymation, so, instead of animating every frame for scenes like when the alien of Christmas Past's aluminum foil spaceship takes off into space, we just tied some string to it and filmed ourselves pulling it up. I spent so much time as a child pretending that I was a character in one of my favorite television shows. And I would rewrite the characters and the stories of these shows so that it suited what I thought was funny and dramatic. And so in that way, I really made them into my own creations. I still do that. While Dick Wolf, the creator of Law & Order, may have intended for his character, Captain Donald Cragen, to be the captain and quasi-father figure for his police squad. I've rewritten that character, and I continue to rewrite that character as needed, so that sometimes he and I are having adventures in the Wild West, or he's giving me advice about dating, or we're riding together in the basket of a hot air balloon shaped like his head.
I didn't come here to talk silliness about me, Rhett. I came here because I was so miserable about the thought of you in trouble. I was so mad at you on the night you left me on the side of the road to terror, and I still haven't forgiven you.
One of my major passions is narrative, especially in cinema and television. But I want to use the traditional codes of narrative that we've established over thousands of years of culture to create a new kind of experience. This really isn't about storytelling, in the sense that I'm not telling anyone a story that they'll be able to understand. I look to the established tropes of the narrative tradition to identify those symbols and strategies that are universally agreed upon as signifiers of specific meanings, and then I manipulated those tropes to reveal a system of meaning transmission that is decidedly out of line with the historically understood strategies of the narrative tradition, but by the very nature of its creation, cannot possibly divorce itself from that tradition. I would define what I do as inventing myths. I used to make everyone listen to my stories when I was a kid. Every day, the dining room was a different fantasy world, and only I had the power to tell everyone else in the house which world they were living in that day. And I don't really know where it came from, but it was always there, this passion, always for storytelling. Well, I've always wanted attention, so naturally I started performing in my work, and I created this persona in the videos, and it allows me to act in ways I feel I can't in normal social situations. It's a third-person self. It becomes another character that I can examine objectively and use to guide the viewer in certain ways. Over time, I started using it in less direct ways, to the point that I created other characters to be played by secondary actors, even inanimate objects, to act out different aspects of the persona. At any given time, the cowboy, the cockroach, the Cragen, whatever, can change identities and represent anyone or anything I've ever known or wanted to know. I always tend to see the funny side of things. And I think that's reflected in my work. The chattering cockroaches. I got the idea from a Modest Mouse song, and I just started cutting a couple of them out and sticking them on the wall, and it turned out over the course of 2.5 weeks I cut out over 600 of them. And now I see them as these little actors, each of them representing someone that I deeply care about. An artist friend of mine, Ryan Treecarton, recently saw these and said that the reason why he loves these cockroaches is that, I'm using something ugly to represent something very beautiful. And there used to only be a few of them, and you could read all of their happy little conversations, but now something's happening, and you see when I added more of them, it started to allude to bigger ideas. So eventually the galleries at Moore asked me to do a show, and I said to them, well, I have to finish cutting them out. And so I ended up cutting out most of them up here in my studio, but I did have to cut out a few in the last minute downstairs in the galleries. And then after it was finally installed, I made this extra one, and I named him Isaac Brock. Oh, that was such a bad joke.
Ladies and gentlemen, whatever the accidents, the compromises, the concessions, and the political adventures, whatever the technical, economic, or even social changes which history brings us, our society is still a bourgeois society!
Obviously, some of my work is just hilarious, but even those things that are absolutely ridiculous, I think hit on some really serious issues. I had a discussion with a professor once about the use of humor in art, and it degenerated into a really heated debate about the meaning of life and the nature of existence. And the idea that as an artist, my actions should be taken so much more seriously than anything else in the universe was so absurd to me. And I'm obviously poking fun at that aspect of things.
She says it's the least she could do to earn her keep. I know you are, Daddy. It's Mommy over there that makes all the trouble. If you listened to me, you wouldn't have married her in the first place. She was a tramp.
There's this episode of the television show on NBC, Law & Order Special Victims Unit, in which the character Detective Elliot Stabler, played by Christopher Maloney, who you may remember from Oz, he has to leave his home base where the show is set in Manhattan to pursue a criminal who has escaped and gone off to upstate New York. But on the same day, he had promised to take his pregnant wife, Kathy, to her doctor's appointment. Luckily, however, his partner, Detective Olivia Benson, played by the gorgeous Mariska Hargitay, offers to take Kathy to her doctor's appointment. And so after they get off the phone, you know, giving the status update, the I love you, everything's fine, we're on our way in the car, hope to see you soon kind of phone conversation. As soon as they hang up the phone, a driver runs a red light and T-bones their car, leaving Kathy Stabler's legs pinned in the vehicle. And of course her water breaks. And she begins labor at that time. So emergency services comes and realizes she's losing a lot of blood, but they can't access her in the vehicle because of the wreckage to administer an IV. So heroically, Olivia Benson, for the first time in her life and with zero training in nursing, administers the IV to Kathy Stabler, and then they're able to get the jaws of life and remove her from the car and get her into the ambulance, at which time Olivia Benson helps to deliver the baby on the way to the hospital. Meanwhile, Detective Tutuola, who is played by Ice-T, has to take a helicopter up to upstate New York to retrieve the new father, Detective Elliot Stabler, and bring him back to New York City so that he can meet his new son.